Hi guys, welcome. Easter is just around the corner and I wanted to show you how I painted these little bunnies. So to begin with, I used this cutter and I traced it on a number of times. I'm not going to tell you how many times I had to do this. So I traced this cutter out on paper, and what I wanted to do was just remove the ear, shape the face, and have a bunny where he's kind of like looking back over his bum. So it took a while to, kind of figure out how I wanted to do the painting and stuff like that, because the difference is, okay, let me see if I can show you. But there's a big difference between what you can do on a cookie cutter that's already been, the shape that you can't manipulate, to something that is like loose artwork that you want to do. So what I wanted to do is kind of like have this sort of rabbit using this cutter. So that was the challenge. But anyway, when I cut this ear off, so I pressed out the dough and I used my knife to cut this, but I didn't do just like a proper curve. What you have to keep in mind is the rabbit skull is a little bit curved here, where the bone goes over the eye socket, and then it has kind of like a flatter part, and then the nose comes in. So just do the best you can if you want to follow this method. But see what I mean? How when I cut the dough, I just used my finger to try to like flatten it and push in his little nose and stuff like that. The other thing I did with the cutter is I flattened this one curve right here so that it was more of his back. And then I flipped them over so the bunnies were pointed this way, and I did a couple pointed this way. So that was the one. That's how I prepped these cookies. The other thing, now you have to learn from my mistakes. That's why you're here. So I thought I should have known better. Such a goof. I thought I had this idea in my head that all I would have to do is pick up the straight gel with a dry brush, and I would be able to put that gel down and then move it around so that it all looked like fur. And what I would be getting initially would be the darker sections around the muzzle, the darker eyebrow, the crease where the ear joins the skull. Anyway, it sounded great in my head and it didn't work. So that's why this guy, he's a real mess, because, and also, okay, so just with the straight gel on a dry brush, don't do that because it doesn't move enough on the glaze. And the rest of this was just working it over and over and over again with more vodka and actually water, and then going back with different brushes. Anyway, you can see what a real mess he is. Now I want to talk about the mess right here. This is the difference between what you're doing with proper artwork and what you want to do with the cookie. And they don't properly blend, in technique, because what I thought I was going to be able to do was have all this contour around the depth, the ear canal, and where the tissue folds into his skull and all this kind of stuff. None of it worked, okay? And I should have known. Where's my cookie cutter? I should have known beforehand, because you have this monstrous ear and this tiny little head. So already you're kind of like in trouble. But what I didn't want to do is spend 5 minutes manipulating every single cookie that I cut out before I could get a shape that I could work with. God, I'm just making too many excuses. So anyway, don't do this. This guy was number one. This one was better because I just thought, forget it. I'm just gonna like pretend that the ear canal is down here and just try to do a little bit of shading. This color is copper, and I wanted him to be kind of, I didn't realize that the copper was gonna show up so orangey, but on the other hand, he's an Easter bunny, so who cares, right? Yeah, so this was copper. I ended up actually toning him down a little bit with a wash of brown. But on this channel, the last thing I want you to have is a whole bunch of different supplies and gel colors and all that kind of stuff. That's not helpful for you guys. I just want you to be able to work with a few brushes and one or two colors. That would make me happy. But anyway, this guy was better, and I totally think it's like a cute little Easter bunny cookie to do. So together, what we're gonna do right now is try not to screw up this guy. Okay, so to recap, when you have your pencil sketch, you have a good idea of what you want to do. So for placement of the eye, you want it to be below the bump in the skull where the eye socket is. You want a large eyeball that's almost like a teardrop. Don't do a circle. You want to have a white dot in the somewhere in the eye, not in the middle, but off center, and you want to have his little black nose. So let's see if we can do that. I'm going to use this little spotter brush. I have my alcohol, my vodka. I'm getting my spotter brush damp with black wash, and I'm just picking up a fair amount of gel on the end of the brush, and then just think about the placement. And it's better to go small and make it larger later if you want to. I think that's kind of okay. If your black wash is too damp, it won't give you a good edge when you do your painting. You'll have some bleeding. How about we just like bring this up and back a little bit more. And then let's do his nose. So you see the nostril on the side, and then the split of the lip. And since I missed, I'm just gonna make this nostril a little bit bigger. I thought that painting the bunnies facing the other way would be harder, so I did those first. Now I'm having trouble doing this one. Okay. No excuses. Let's get rid of the spotter brush. Now, what we're gonna do is I'm using a flat brush. I'm gonna have it damp. I do like them to have the pink tails to kind of match the pink for the inside of the ear. So I'm gonna have this damp with brown wash, and I'm gonna go light at first. And I know this. I know it, but what do I do last night? I'm dicking around with all these heavy shades and stuff, and just stay away from that black on his eye. You can get closer to that later, but right now we just want to get down some color and get them all covered, and see how the alcohol is sort of like spreading and making those. That's typical. Oh, that's okay. I mean, it's fur, right? So it's supposed to be a little bit uneven. Get some pink on top of that area where his tail goes. And then just do the outside of the ear and leave the center white. Get the borders and now if these areas are dry, let's start putting on a little bit more color. And you're using your sketch as a guide. So you kind of want to have like a lighter patch on his back where the light is kind of catching the curve of his back. But also you don't want to get into trouble, so let's start by adding a bit more color around like his haunches, above where the tail would be. And if your brush, like if you're going back and forth too much, it kind of feels like your brush is picking up a little bit of glaze as well each time, so you can just kind of like clean it off. But then I want to go back and pick up. I'm getting my brush damp with the brown wash, and then picking up a bit of the gel. And I think, like, because the other bunny that I did was a little bit dark, I don't want this guy to be quite as dark as the other one. I do have one more rabbit cookie, and I think I might try him purple just to see how that turns out. Some color around his face. And the muzzle. Let's be darker. And then it's just kind of a matter of paying attention to a little bit of shading and working them over however you want. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? My God, what a mess he is. Because that's what I'm thinking. It's okay, we're not done yet. And honestly, if the water sort of seems to help you spread the coloring a bit better than the alcohol, then try that as well. Because I did find last night that working with the water on the ear seemed to be like a lot more like easier to control. Okay, I don't know. It's kind of like good enough. I'd be a little safer and switch to a smaller brush. Okay, so I'm just cleaning off my flat brush. And maybe switching to, this is kind of a slightly larger spotter brush, but just gives me a chance to have a little better control. When I was working last night, I did the eye first, and I was sure the black was dry. And then, don't you know, I was putting on the coloring around his face. I didn't even realize the brush had gone through it, and a little black streak appeared just like that. So now what we can do is use our smaller brush and just add a little bit more shading around his muzzle. Because honestly, shading is everything. It's what makes him look so cute, makes him look like a little bunny. So even if you can't be bothered to do a good job on his body, if you can take a few minutes to add some little details around his face, his eye, his ear, then he's gonna look super cute. And from the way the cutter was just so different from the type of artwork that I wanted to do, I was kind of like pretty happy with the way he turned out. Okay, so I want to add more color, but I got to make sure that this is dry so that it doesn't all like spread out the wrong way. Let's just leave that for now, and I'm just checking. Okay, so what we can do is we should make this slightly smaller. See how the alcohol is just making that line? But if I used water, it wouldn't be as severe. That's okay. And then we're going to want to have just a little bit of darkness here at the bend where his ear is meeting his back. And so just blend this out a little bit. It's a problem with dicking around with a small brush. It takes longer to get stuff done, and that's all right. But I just haven't done enough of these to be confident enough to start working with a larger brush and slapping down the color. Because with that one bunny that I did last night, as I was messing around for a long time, just trying to spread out some of the shading and fix them up. But this I'll do later with the flat brush. I want to do, so there is, like, typically it's like an eyebrow, but what it is the curvature of the skull where it makes the fur kind of condense around the eye there, so it does look like he has a little eyebrow. Well, that's an important feature to include. Okay, that's enough messing around with the brown, because I want to fix all this stuff with my flat brush again when I go back, but I just wanted to do some of the detail work around his, oh, and here I am cleaning off the brush, but I just want to have it a little bit darker under this haunch here too. This is good. Okay. Now, what brush do I want to use? Oh, I'll use this one actually, just to pick up some of the pink. So I'm using a pink wash, and this pink is just so darn, it's the lightest shade of pink that Wilton makes, but good golly, Miss Molly, it really drops a lot of color. This is really, really diluted, and it's still making it a little bit dark. And then what you want to do is just have your brush damp with the wash and pick up some darker, just some straight gel and stuff to have it at the bottom of the ear canal. I'm going to pull that up a little bit. We'll let that dry, and for the tail, just try to make it a little bit pink and white and messy and fluffy. Good enough. Now I want to actually just use water. Pull this up a little bit. That's okay. Good. Now, I think that's sort of unfinished, but you know what I mean. Let's just go back and use our flat brush and pick up some brown wash and just see if we can start blending them out and fixing them up. And I'm using the edge of the brush right now. See what I mean with the difference between like artwork and dealing with a cookie? Because I would never in a million years think about doing a rabbit that looked like this with my artwork. This wouldn't happen. Okay, I have to be careful with this flat brush because I don't want it to be too damp and spread too much of the color, but we do want to fix them up. Tone this down a little bit around his eye. Don't worry, we're not going to forget. We can put in the eyebrow again if we need to, and then just do a little bit more blending. Maybe be a little bit darker under his chin. Where this fur blends into his back. And you know, I think with a larger flat brush anyway, it just kind of makes him look a little bit like fluffy and furry, right? Blend out this dark patch on his bum. I don't know how dark this is. But once you kind of get comfortable with what you want to do and your brushes, then, you know, I'm not saying that these are fast cookies to paint. God forbid I make something that's easy for us to do. So I need to be a little bit darker right in here. Then we need to wait for this to dry so we can put on his whiskers. Okay. See, we've got the lighter patch on his back. Got some good contour around his face. Let's just use this spotter brush and just kind of increase his eyebrow a little bit. Okay. I'm just kind of, yes, I'm dicking around, you know me, but I'm also just waiting for his, what am I doing down here? Making a mess and making it worse. I want his face to dry, so that when we put on the whiskers, there's no running and bleeding. Do you think there's enough pink through the ear? Yes, it's all right. Maybe just a smidge more. Okay. Just while I am prepping, I can tell from the light that this is still just a little bit damp, but I want to get lots and lots of glaze on my script liner. So I'm using my script liner and I'm getting it damp with the black wash, and then I'm rolling it in straight black glaze to get it really nicely covered. And I want to just make sure that he's got, let's just see. Yeah, this is gonna sit. This is gonna sit okay. So for his whiskers, do some like short and going in different directions. And don't forget to do just a couple by his little eye. There. Too bad the glaze cracked. Anyway, he's okay. But I think maybe I'll just use a little bit of brown wash to sort of like tone down this white on his muzzle a little bit. There we go. That's good enough. So those are the little Easter bunnies. I don't know what you're thinking, but anyway, he's gonna get eaten anyway. Okay, you guys, thanks so much. I'll see you next time.